Oh, we are.
Way to do it.
It is now
Okay.
6:01 PM,
You have.
and I call this meeting for Independence School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members are present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come before you first in appreciation for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for all unending blessings for all of us in this room and for people outside this building. We ask that you continue to guide us, keep our students safe throughout the summer, provide a lot of rest for our teachers, our administrators as they get ready for next year. And we continue to praise you and thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. In Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mrs. Casas. Do we have anyone that signed up for public comment? Thank you, Ms. Ramos. It is now 6:02 PM, and we're closing the regular board meeting to an open public meeting discussing the proposed budget for school year 26-27.
Thank you, Board President Castillo, Superintendent Mrs. Torres, board members that are here, audience that's here. So we'll be going over the proposed budget for the 26-27 fiscal year. As y'all know, our fiscal year ends next week, June 30th. So we do have to bring forth to y'all a proposed budget in accordance with rules, and then go ahead and explain some of it. We do have to present it by function code, and we normally do that. We go over that by function, by object code, and a couple of things of what's led us to prepare our budget and where we're at right now. So I believe all of y'all did get a copy of it, so y'all can follow it. And then it does have the page number on the bottom right corner. So we can go to the table of contents real quick. Again, I'll be going over some of the things that helped us, prepare the budget, some of the factors that impacted. I know that last year, when Mr. Navas presented, we had a legislative year last year, right? So there was quite a bit of changes. This year, there was not that many changes. There is a couple of things, but these are all because some of these things were delayed until this coming year. But obviously, since there's no legislative year, there, in terms of funding or any news coming from the state, there hasn't been any, pretty much. I do want to talk about, how we got to our projections for our revenue, for our appropriations, where we see everything in terms of our enrollment trend, just like everybody else. If we can go on to the next page, to page 3. So page 3 is again, what we want to show you all pretty much is, I'm going to be going over the revenues and the appropriations. Appropriations is just another word for expenses. That's what we budget. So for the revenues, we've calculated, again, based on estimations, projections, data that we have, current data. We do project to be able to bring in almost $42 million in revenue. And again, this would be everything from our biggest ones, which is our property tax collections, our state funding. And again, that's what helps us pay, fund the school, pay for our food service. Food service is another one, federal funding that, we depend heavily on, and of course, to pay our debt service. And I'll go over our debt service as well. As y'all know, we had the new bond. We refunded some of the bonds, meaning that we consolidated them. So I'll go over those. And then on the appropriations, it's the same amount. So what does that mean? That what we are bringing to y'all today is a balanced budget, right? You'll see it in some other districts where, if they don't have enough revenue calculations, then they'll maybe have to use some from their fund balance, or vice versa. In some years where maybe you project too much revenue and you want to just maybe put some aside. So here, everything that we're projecting to get, we are budgeting it. Now, of course, a lot of this is what I was saying is it's projections. We just, throughout the year, we'll start getting actual data, and then we'll start plugging that in, and we'll see where we're at in terms of, do we adjust our budget, do we higher it, lower it, or do we keep it as is? We go on to the next page. So again, factors that have impacted the budget, again, I know that Mr. Cavazos presented some of this information last year. Some of the biggest ones that we talked about obviously was the teacher retention allotment, with the teachers getting that increase. The support staff, we got one here because we're a coastal county, we got some funding that is helping us out with our property insurance. Go on to the next page, please. So this year, like I said, it was fairly quiet. One of the biggest things that we did not implement last year, but we are gonna implement this year, is the way they are going to categorize, or the way we're gonna report special education. I know Rachel and her staff have been working with TEA and with Region 1. Essentially, all of our students, prior to this, we would categorize them into, I believe it was 12 different categories. So now we're going from a category to an intensity of services model. So it is gonna be a lot of legwork for her staff. The fact TA is giving us a grant for them to actually come in the summer to enter that data. Because essentially, every student has to be entered from scratch. And it's gonna be based on, again, the types of services, and then how often, meaning how intense those will be. However, having said that, because it's brand new to TEA, they still don't know how the funding's gonna look, right? So for example, we have to bring forth our budget to you all for 26-27. TEA doesn't even have student data to even start saying, okay, this is what it's gonna look like. So what they recommended for us is to just use the old model in terms of us doing our calculations for special ed funding. But I did want to put it on there. That's something that we'll be working out throughout this year and even into next year. Some of the things there that I have in there was the proposed tax rate. Right before that is the preliminary tax values. So every April, the County Appraisal District sends us the CAD values, and they are preliminary. They're not certified until the middle of July. What they sent us now, it was around $830 million, the taxable assessed value, right? What we can tax, what belongs to the jurisdiction of the district of La Feria. It's about a 3% increase, which, that's good. I'm sure, in the past years, we had seen where it was going up 10%, 15%. So the 3% growth, I think it might be an indicator that we're gonna go back to that normal 3 to 4% every year growth. So I think that's good for taxpayers also. But again, we won't know exactly what it is until we get the certified values mid-July. But as of right now, it's about a 3% increase from prior year's tax roll. On the tax rate, having said that, because there was very minimum change, and if you all know, right, with our tax rate, the M&O and the INS, so on the M&O, there's been compression, right, from the state. They've been reducing it, and then they offset it with state aid. So what's going on right there is we actually just got about 2 days ago some additional clarification on that. So TA is still working on that. They don't give us that final number till August. So what we put right now is that we propose the same exact tax rate for this coming year. But remember, you're not adopting that tonight. We have until September 30th to bring that to you so that the board can formally adopt the rate. The projected student data, so again, I'll go over it briefly, but then you'll see it throughout this whole report, where we use the number of students, and then of course you know that the majority of our funding is based on attendance, not just enrollment. So this year, the 25-26 school year, we just finished doing our summer submission for PEIMS. And our ADA, our average daily attendance, came in at 2,482. That was about a 93.7, almost a 93.8 attendance rate, which is good. It's gone up slightly every year, since we came back from COVID. We still want to continue to address that. And it's funny, you see it right with, they break it down by grade levels and all that, and as our kids get older, those are the ones, the attendance starts going a little bit down, and so that's something we want to definitely address. But what I wanted y'all to see is under the 26-27 projected ADA, that's the number that we're gonna be using to calculate a lot of our funding. So what we did is we reduced our number of students. We're projecting maybe 50 to 60 kids, so I reduced the ADA of 44. And so that, again, just to show that, we are considering, because it's something that we know is going on every year, and we hope for eventually in 3 or 4 years that it'll become, it'll kind of flatline, and then, what goes out, what seniors go out, comes in with our pre-K cohorts, yeah. So we are projecting about 44 less ADA. We do want, hopefully, to have maybe a 94.2 or 94% attendance rate, which I think is very realistic and attainable. Because that's the trend that we've seen every year, about 0.2, 0.3 increase every year, so I think that'll line up with that. When we had our budget meeting, about a month ago, we did talk about some of the staffing reductions that we had, so we kept those same ones. I know that, you know, in talking to Mrs. Torres, we've had maybe one or two more, but those are the ones that we know for sure we've had. And then on our proposal of our budget, we did incorporate some increases for our staff, for everybody, whether it's teachers, hourly, our auxiliary staff. And so I kind of wanted to break it down there. On the teachers, I broke it down a little bit more because all of our teachers that have been here with us, that are moving up a step, like with the exception of step 3 and step 5, you know, we're recommending a $1,000 raise. And the reason for that, for step 3 and step 5, those raises are coming from the state. That's a mandate from House Bill 2. You know, so that's not something that the district decided to do. That's the funding that just funnels through us, goes directly to them. So that's, again, that's why I wanted to put a little asterisk there, and that's just mandated, that increase. And then of course, for everybody else, for our administrative professional staff, for our clerical, our paraprofessionals, and all of our auxiliary, right, our maintenance, our bus drivers, our food service staff, everybody would be at 2% off their midpoint. And so those are the estimated costs, what it would be.
I have a question.
Yes.
For these positions that I know we talked about have been reduced, is this counselor from the school that was closed?
Yes. So
Yes.
this past year, we moved that counselor as an extra counselor at a campus, just because we closed it.
What
And then
campus was?
Sanchez. So, well, she came from the Sanchez campus, and she went to Green. She was not with us the majority of the year, for health reasons, but, she came from that campus. So we actually had 3 counselors at that campus and only needed 2. Because we moved another counselor over there. We
So
did
you
some
moved the
shifting.
one from Seaville
Yes.
to Green?
Sanchez.
Oh, to Sanchez?
Sanchez. We did some moving of
They didn't
counselors
have
last
one
year.
in Sanchez?
She's the one that moved to Green.
Oh.
Yes, for personnel reasons and different reasons, we moved people
So you
around.
had 2 counselors at Green?
3 with her.
3.
She was the extra one. We always knew when we closed the campus that we were gonna have an extra counselor, some extra admin, some extra, staff, but we would keep them until we absorbed
Yeah.
them. And so when she retired this spring, we absorbed that position.
Okay. And so how many counselors are we gonna have at Green?
2.
2, the number that we've always had, or 1?
We've had 2, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Huh.
We used to have 1 assistant, and when we moved over campus, we added 2 assistants.
Okay.
And again, just to continue on the special education, I already talked about that, where this was something that passed in House Bill 2 last year, but it's not being implemented until this year. But in terms of the funding implications, we probably won't know till, maybe until next year, once they have all the data for all the special ed students. We can go on to the next page, to page 7, and this is again talking about the estimated revenues. So on page 7, again, I'll go through it pretty quick on these, because again, they are gonna be very repetitive. So again, our 3 main funding sources are either local, state, or federal. So the majority of the funding that we get for our district comes from the state, right? And that's what I was mentioning earlier, that's why it's important for us to maintain a good attendance rate. In terms of the property taxes, that's why I also brought up the tax roll and what our property tax rate is gonna be. Because again, the tax rate is for 2 reasons. One, so that we can pay our bonded obligations, but then from there, we do get a big portion that goes into 199 to help us with our regular day-to-day operations. So again, we're projecting about $8.2 million in property tax collections. Again, that's about at a 95, 96% collection rate, and that's something that we also have to monitor. Under state revenues, again, that's where we get the majority of it, and I'll briefly talk about all those state programs in one of the other slides, but there we get about 27.7 million. And then the TRS on behalf, remember that TRS pays a portion for all of our teachers, they match their retirement. So that comes off. And then on federal revenues, the 3.5 million, again, the majority of that, that's our food service. Again, the majority of the funding that we get is through the school breakfast program and the national school lunch program. So those are all federal funding.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a reason why we're projecting decrease on that co-curricular and enterprising activities?
Yeah, so the co-curricular and enterprising, again, it's a combination of some of our athletic games and some of the gate fees that we get.
One of the things when when the state changes with the 5 corporate schools, they charge, instead of we charge, say, 7 and 3 for football games, they charge 5 and 1 or 5 and 2. And so they go with the majority vote, and because that, they have 5 votes and we have 3, we had to go with that. So we know we're going to come down some on gate fees.
And we also based it off what our activity looked like this year. So I think that last year we might have maybe thought we were getting a little bit more than we did. And again, it's also a combination of, we really don't know when our biggest revenues obviously will be your football games, things like that. But we don't know how many home games we'll get on those. So sometimes we'll have 6, and then if we have 4, then that's where it kind of shifts.
And
But
then
it's
because
just,
we're
a lot of it
playing-
is based on our activity
And
currently.
because we're playing schools that are further away, we don't know what the numbers are gonna look like when we play, so we're just gonna kind of see how that goes.
And another part of it also is meals. Again, it's not that we charge a lot or that we make a lot of money, but also the meals that, whether it's employees or anybody else that wants to get an extra meal, that's how they pay for those as well. And again, once we compare that to last year's, again, a lot of this is very similar. So it's similar for different reasons, right? Even though our enrollment's going down a little bit, the state funding that kicked in, that's what helps kind of offset some of it. And then, of course, that's where we have to, like I showed in the previous slide, we have to see where can we reduce some of our staffing so that we can be able to cover some of those costs. Go on to the next slide.
Let me ask you something. One of the things that I've been, kind of looking through is, and you can educate me on this, it says, on House Bill, 120, the key component of that was that they were gonna increase the appropriated amount for related allotments under the foundation school program from 100 million to 150 million. What does that mean to us?
I'll actually show that later on, so it depends.
Okay.
If they're talking about tier 1, remember that in tier 1, they added a lot of new allotments. The teacher retention allotment was the biggest one. They gave us the support staff retention allotment. They also gave us, because we're a coastal county, like for example, we're in La Feria, they gave us about $50,000 to help us with our property insurance. Another of the biggest ones that you saw was, some of it went to the school safety one. Remember that we only used to get $10 per student. So now we actually get 30,000, I believe it's 30,000 per campus, plus the $10 per student, which is still not enough, right, to pay for the police officer there, but it does help cover some of that cost that otherwise we would have had to be putting the entire bill. And so, yeah, when they say 150 million, it's 150 million across the whole state.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, and so, and I'm not saying, like I said, I think the funding that they gave us last year was good, but there's still some shortings there in some areas.
Does that impact CTE?
In CTE, well, CTE is one of the ones, that one is directly based on how many kids you have in your level 1, level 2 courses, or your level 3, level 4 courses. So I think CTE is more dependent on the programs that we offer, and then how many kids are actually doing those. And then are those kids actually finishing the program? Because it has different weights.
So you talk about it, that's why when a child, it used to be that you could take different pathways, but if a child is in a pathway their freshman and sophomore year, they're not gonna let them flip their junior or senior because they won't finish a pathway.
Right.
So that, they say you have to finish a pathway. And so, because, that is one of the things that they used to do.
And so how are we doing with our kids staying in the pathway that they started?
We
Do
pretty
have a
much,
good-
yes.
Yeah,
do
so
have a
we
good
see
number?
those numbers. You'll see, for example, and actually, it's funny that you say that, because I was telling the stories, I am submitting my work, I felt like I was in a math class, so I'm gonna show you how I did my work. And it breaks it down, because again, it's data that we get from different stuff, so one of those is the CTE.
But I
And
can't.
so you'll see there the comparison from last year, how your level 1, level 2, the number of kids, now your level 3, level 4 is higher, because now those kids are moving down. And that's good,
Yeah.
because we want them to finish, not for the funding purpose, but so that they can get their certification.
When a student gets out of a pathway, one of the things, and we presented that, I believe, at the, Mr. Garcia talked about it when we were at CASB. We have a student that is in the culinary arts pathway, but he decided to go through ACE, and ACE, he got his dental assistant. ACE is totally different, and that's not a pathway, you're just working on a certification. So we have some students that do this pathway of culinary arts, but then decide to go above and beyond and get pharmacy tech or dental assistant or, so you have those situations. Did they go through a pathway? No, they studied a program and passed a test, so
Yeah,
it's two
well,
different things.
I guess my interest is if they're going to do, say they're gonna do something for CTE, it needs to be something that is being done, that helps the student. You know, like I mentioned to you in that email that I wrote this morning, I was real discouraged by the people that I interviewed today, because there were recent graduates and they had no idea what CTE was. And I'm wondering, and they were not from La Feria, they were from different school districts. So that kind of concerned me.
Did
'cause
you,
I-
sometimes they don't know the word CTE.
No,
They
I
just-
explained to them
Oh,
what it
okay.
was. I said, you could have gotten, when I asked them, what skills do you have that you can start, that we can continue the training? They had no skill. I said, well, did you know about CTE culinary? No, they didn't know. So it kind of concerned me because I thought, how, and this is not talking about La Feria per se, 'cause I don't even,
Right.
know that. But how can public school ensure that the students know about what's out there? And I'm wondering if La Feria has a good model, then perhaps they can share it with other schools. If you have a good way that you engage kids, like you're saying, if they don't finish this pathway, they can go over here under the ACE program.
And I can tell you, I know that through the Region 1 meetings that they have, we have presented, our director has presented to all the other directors with some of the things that we do at their CTE director meetings.
Yeah, I
They
tried to
do
talk-
that, each school takes.
I tried to talk to Dr. King about that because I was really shocked at those students that they were not, they had no idea what they were gonna do. He says, well, if I don't, I said, what are you gonna do if you don't find a job? He says, well, I guess I have to go to college. And I said, well, did you pass your TSI? What's that? You know, we're in trouble. Anyway, I just wondered how the bills that the legislators introduced, how are they actually helping?
So one of them that he talked about briefly is the safety. We get 30,000 and we get $10 a student. So, you know, they gave some money, but they didn't get full money. Just like the seatbelts, we found out.
Right, with the CBO, with the buses, right, because there's a new law that's gonna come into effect in about a year. And we just got the results that, they wanna give us like $6,000 per bus. And like Mr. Martin was saying, like, that's not even enough to do not even a third of the bus, right? And then the other question is, if they did give us enough money, what about some of these buses that are already at the end of their useful life? Do you really wanna invest 20, 30, 40,000 in them? But if we wanna buy a new bus, well, where are we gonna get the other 80,000? Because buses used to be 120, now they're 150, 170,000.
And see, that's what, that concerns me, that we are, given, we have no choice once they make
Right.
decisions. And so I'm thinking, where are the school trustees' advocacy? I mean, instead of just saying, we want more money, we need to be educated in things like this, like I didn't know that,
Right.
you know? So I think, and I was talking to Tasby about that, they need to educate all these trustees so that they know to call the legislator and say, hey, what you're giving us is just not gonna be enough.
Right. And I know a lot of times with advocacy, you know, the legislators wanna see data, right? They wanna know
Yes.
that, hey,
Yes.
we'll listen to you, but show us the data. And I know
Yes.
Mr. Marin had done a presentation, maybe 2 or 3 months ago on that. And he had mentioned the cost, and I was just reiterating what he said. I think he had said, hey, you know, $20,000, I don't wanna invest $20,000 on a bus that is already at towards the end of the
I
life.
remember that.
But if it's the law, like you said, right, then we have no choice.
And then I think this is where us 7 here need to have that in our notebook, instead of just saying we want more money.
Yeah, definitely. On the next one, again, the next several slides, they're just the breakdown of what I just talked about. So for example, this one with property taxes, it's just a breakdown of, you know, how we collect that, which is combination of current, delinquent, and penalty and interest. And on the next slide, those are the miscellaneous revenue ones. I think, you know, Mr. Briones had a question on one of those. So we compare these to the ones for last year, right? Under athletics, we are calculating that we'll get a little bit less there. And then in terms of food service, it'll probably be the same, and then interest income was the one that came in a little bit higher than we thought so. And then the state revenues, and this is the one that we were just talking about, Ms. Casas. So this one right here, remember the slide that I showed you that I said, we get $27 million in state aid. This is what makes it all up. So these are all the allotments that we were talking about. And they're broken up into different tiers, right, for different reasons. All your tier ones, those are your main ones, which is a lot of those are your state programs like CTE, bilingual, dyslexia, special ed, GT, early education. Those are some of the ones that have, certain spending requirements. And then of course you have your tier two. Those are more for operations like transportation, school safety. School safety used to be in tier one. And actually, it would have benefited us if it stayed there, but the legislators moved it down. Because then if they would have left it in the tier one, we would have gotten more money because of the guarantee deal. So, but they moved it out, so. And then other stuff, right, like at the very bottom, the one that I was talking about, TRS on behalf. So that's the contribution of the state, they pay for the employer to match the employee's retirement. So this is just a breakdown of all those, and this is every single one of the allowance that we get for state aid. Jump on to the next slide now. And then federal revenues. Again, as I mentioned, federal revenues, 90%, 95% of it is all for food service, which is your school breakfast program, your national school lunch program. We do get commodities from the USDA, and then of course some indirect costs on some of the grants that we have, that we do through TEA. And we still get a little bit of SHARs, but so that's a combination of the 3.5 million. Now we go on to the appropriations. Again, appropriations, just a fancy word for expenses or for budget. So everything that all the revenue that we calculated that we are expecting to get, as long as we maintain some of our numbers, then we appropriated it and set it up as a budget. And so again, our budget consists of the three main funds, which is food service, or our child nutrition, our general fund, and our debt service. And then here it's broken down by expenditure type. We call it object code. And I think sometimes that's easier to understand it, right? And you'll see there that, out of the almost $42 million that we get for to pay our bonds, to pay for all of our operations and for food service, 30.3 or almost 30.4 million of it goes to payroll costs, which is about 72%. And again, remember, payroll costs is not just us, the employees, it's also our substitutes, it's also when we do the extra duty, overtime, things like that. And then of course to pay for some of the insurances that we have to pay. We pay for unemployment, workers' comp as well. So those are some of the things that we pay through there. And then the other types of expenditures, we have our contracted services, our supplies and materials, our other operating is our miscellaneous. That's where usually, a lot of that is our student and employee travel. And then of course our debt service that I mentioned, those are to pay our obligations, and then capital outlay. And then I'll talk briefly about those, some of the projects that we have that are not bond projects. We go on to page number 14. Again, it's broken down by function code. And so when you, the board, once we close the public hearing and you all do an action item, when you all approve the budget, you all approve it based on function code. And again, function code is based on those, again, the majority of it goes to instruction. So if you compare, for example, the very first one, instruction, it's actually higher than last year. And again, that has to do because of the raises that were given.
So right now, Alex basically estimates how much he thinks we're gonna get and puts them in the different function. However, if we get less than we thought, sometimes a budget amendment comes because we have to move some money here to here. So that's why sometimes we have budget amendments, or most of the time, we always have at least one or two.
And we try to be, conservative. We try to have some contingency here and there. But, sometimes it's hard, right, to kind of predict the future. But, we try our best, but if we do, like Nestor said, we need to bring a budget amendment. I know this year we brought 2 of them, and so we try to keep it at a minimum. And then at the very bottom, again, those are some of the state allotment programs. I already mentioned some of those. Some of those are actually in the page that we were talking about earlier on the revenues. Your gifted and talented, your career and technical education, your special ed, state comp, bilingual, early education, dyslexia, and then CCMR. So those are the main ones. And the reason we state those, because those are actual state programs, and they have requirements, like a spending requirement. Those have a little bit more restrictive. I think of them almost like our federal grants. Like you can only spend certain things on those. We'll go on to page 16. So now we'll be talking about, how we compare our budget district to last year. So overall, our budget did go down a bit, but for the most part, it did remain the same. Again, when we compared to last year, Our budget last year was about 42.4, almost 42.5 million. So then this year, it was almost 42 million. So there was a reduction there, and again, that has to do with different things in terms of, we are expected to have a little bit less of students. And then we have to see where these students categorize, because we don't just get funding for them to come. Is the student a bilingual student? Is it a special ed student? What type of special ed student is it? And then so we also have to make sure, one of the things I wanted to point out, and I think I did mention it in the budget workshop, was it makes it difficult for us sometimes, because even though our enrollment may be going down, some of our programs are getting bigger. And so it makes it tough, because a lot of our programs, whether they're extracurriculars or not, a lot of them, if not all of them, are not funded, right? One of the ones that we get funded through, of course, is like our ACE program. And even there, as the ACE program grows, then, Jack and his team have to decide, which programs do we keep or not. So the same thing here, I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate that, because it does make it difficult for us, right? Because you would think that, hey, I'm just gonna do 5% or 10% all across. But then I get feedback, like for example, I'll use band as an example. I was talking to Mr. Cardona, and his band group is gonna get bigger, because the number of seniors that left, he's doubling up, because he's getting twice as many freshmen that are gonna come up from 8th grade. And so it makes it difficult, because then again, and then a lot of these things they don't cost what they used to cost, whether it's the instruments, repairs, equipment, uniforms, things like that. So, and those are the things that, make our kids come to school, right? So we just wanna put that out there, it makes it a little bit more tougher on us, but here again, it's by function, and then of course it's broken down by the expenditure type that I mentioned, like payroll costs, supplies and materials, and so forth. And again, the majority of it, again, 72% of it goes to payroll costs. If you go to page 17, again,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Page 16. Ms. Torres, I'm looking at the guidance and counseling, and I'm gonna start using glasses. I started using them during COVID, and now, anyway. Under guidance and counseling, I see that we had for 2026, we had, there was a reduction on what was going to be for that, 925,000, is that what
Right.
it is?
And now it's
We're down to
832.
832,
Yes.
which is a difference of 93. Is that something else you're gonna cut, or
The
is the
salary?
counselor?
That's
we're
the
not
salary
having-
that we talked about earlier.
She cost us $93,000?
You have the salary, you have the benefits.
No,
which-
that's what I'm asking. Does it
No, that's
cost
what I'm
us?
trying to explain.
See, no, that's okay. I just want yes or no. That's how much it cost us to have that one counselor.
Yes.
93,000.
That lady, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I know, yes, they did.
Wow. Because I really hate to see us, not keeping counselor. I understand that you try to keep one per campus or two per campus, but I really feel that that's a department, that if we're gonna have overflow, it should be in the counseling department. Because what we have, they're not getting to the students unless the student comes in and asks questions or whatever. And I really think that's a department that really should be, if anything, overstaffed. I wish we had been able to keep that counselor, especially in the middle school, in Green. So I'm kinda sorry that we, kinda let go of her. And also, under the social worker, we also had a reduction in that area. Did we lose something in social work or?
No, we have a reduction there because we actually go through UTRGV, so we have a grant through UTRGV, so that's where we get our social workers from.
And so we're not gonna get.
So we do get social workers, but that's a good opportunity for us to be able to use that free funding to be able to pay for those social workers.
But why did the money we had allocated for that, why is it reduced?
Well, because now it's being paid for by UTRGV.
But we didn't lose staff?
No, we didn't lose
social
staff, no.
workers.
It's just now it's being funded through UTRGV.
Okay. Well, as long as we don't lose those two, because I really feel that given the situations, the needs that we have, and what I see out there, those two departments should definitely have, if not overflow, instead of understaffed. Okay, thank you.
And then, again, pages 17, 18, and 19, it's the same one, it's just broken down by, page 17 is just general fund. And then page 18 would be just your food service, which again, food service, their budget is about $3 million. And then the other one, and again, that one with food service, it did go down about, 380,000 or so. But again, and a lot of ours, they depend on our EcoDisc population, which is why we're pushing the family income survey. And it also depends on the type of, our students, are they picking up that food? Because it's based on claims. He has to order food and make food as if every kid's gonna come, but he only gets reimbursed for the meals that get actually picked up. And they do have a lot of restrictions, so it's not like a child can get 2 or 3 meals, so it is very restrictive. And then our debt service. And so our debt service, again, compared to last year was about 2.8 million, it did go down slightly. And that you will only see this year, and that was as a result of the refunding, the 2026 series. So we were able to have that savings in the first year or 2. After that, it goes back to how it usually is. What next? And that's it. And then now we can go on to, on page 20, again, the proposed tax rate. I'm not gonna go too much into detail with it, because again, I will be bringing it back, probably in our September board meeting. Again, this is just a preliminary proposed tax rate, to keep it the same, but there are things, like I said, TA provides a tool so that we can calculate the maximum compressed value on the M&O side. And then, of course, right now, there's a lot of, with the county appraisal district, if you look at their reports, which are public, you see a lot of them that are under protest. Well, they're protesting their values, so which is why they wait till July to give us our certified. And then they do have a lot of supplemental rolls throughout the year. So that's something that we also monitor to make sure that we have a tax rate that is enough to be able to pay for our long-term debt. We can go on to page 23. And this is what I was saying, I just wanted to show you all my work. Again, everybody uses these. There's 3 different ones, and these are they're called the state funding templates. So yeah, again, and right there, so you see on the, compared to 26% to the 25-26, you'll see the reduction in the ADA. That was our ADA as of the summer submission, 2482, so we did reduce it about 44. And again, then that has a trickle effect. Remember I was showing you earlier, the state, all the different programs that we get in state aid. When we reduce our ADA, every single one takes a hit.
Right.
And so that's where we then have to manage and work with our departments and our campuses. If we can go down just a little bit more on these. Directors that we're talking about, Ms. Casas, where you see where in CTE, they had about 178, and this is full-time enrollment, so it's not actual students, because it's like ADA. And you see how in level 1 and 2, there was 178, so now this year, they project to have about 185, and they're still working on those, so those numbers should be going up. That tells you that, hey, these kids are staying in the program, and hopefully they see it to completion.
About what percentage of our students are in CTE?
I sent that to the board.
Just
I don't wanna say off the top of my head, I would say 90%.
9?
But,
Wow.
yeah, but I sent that to the board, I'll send it again, on the 12th.
Yeah, I'm just curious how many.
Most of our students are pathway
Because the more we have in CTE, we get more funding. Is that
from the
a
levels
correct assumption?
as Mr. Cespedes said, level 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, you get funding.
So we scroll down just a little bit, the ones that I wanted to bring up again, because, we've been wanting to push it a lot, but keep going, please. Is right the census block. So those are the family income survey, right? So the way we determine whether a student is economically disadvantaged or not, we get those letters, we get it from food service. Food service gets a direct certification list. If the student and their family get any types of benefits. But then the students that don't get benefits, then we do the income survey. And this is where it gets a little tricky, right? So TA has a method, they want to say, okay, if you have determined that a student is EcoDisc, now TA wants to know what is their address. And so there's 5 different census blocks. What does that mean? It's based on their address, TA then gives you a certain weight. And I think the reasoning behind it is they're saying, well, if you're saying that you're economically disadvantaged, right, based on a chart, but if you live in a neighborhood where property values may be high, or I don't know if they use that, or the GDP, then, the weight is less. But again, it gets tricky because then those blocks are updated in the middle of the year when we've already done our calculations. And so there's been times where then a lot of our kids in block 5 go to 403s, and so we get less funding. And this helps us get money for state comp. And it also helps us get money for federal funding, which is everything, right? It's our Title I, our IDRB, Title II, Title III, Title IV. So it has a trickle effect on everything. It affects the National School Lunch Program that I just mentioned. We were talking to Mr. Garcia, we barely make the cut to be considered free and reduced. And so that's something we have to monitor. So again, these are just things that we look at. These are projections as best as we can based on current data, and then these get updated throughout the year as we get real data.
I have a question. What is it, if you look down at career, college, and military readiness for disadvantaged, under special ed graduates, we have a 2 under 25, 26, but then we have 0.
Those are just projections. Remember
So
that
we don't project that anybody's going to be there?
either we haven't found anybody, because remember CCMR is I believe it's 2 years back, because these are graduates already. And so then my understanding with CCMR is then we have to find out, okay, if this kid is going to college or went to college, and again, the data is not available until maybe 2 years after the fact. And then we have to know whether it was a student,
So we
special
just got the
ed.
data from 2024, and we
Yeah.
had 2 students in 2024, so we're projecting for next year. So we already know 2025, so it's very, like, in 2024, I just looked at the data, 2 out of 24 special ed students passed both. So we already got the data for 2025, I don't know how many students we had, but probably 0 that year got that, so that's why we're projecting 0.
And
Because
again,
we already
it's just
know.
projections, it doesn't mean that it can't change if we find out.
Right,
And I mean, I'm sure y'all have gone to a lot of the CCMR meetings, because one of the hardest things to do is military, like the military branches, it's very hard to get data from them. And it's also very hard to get data from like out-of-state universities. The in-state universities work really well with us, and I'm sure it's like that at every state.
and you just asked today about TSI and IBCs, and so I sent some out to the board on the weekly report, but they actually can take tests until October of 2026.
Well, what worried me about that was that the kids will have been out of school for 6 weeks already.
And again,
By the
those are
time-
students that pass both. We have a lot more that pass TSI, but you asked how many pass TSI and IBC, so
No,
those are
I
together.
said I wanted a different number for each one. How many had done PSI? I didn't worry. As you can see, I was writing that email, I don't know what time at night. And when I read it, I said, that's not what I meant. I wanted to know how many kids how many graduates had passed the PSI and how many
Oh, okay.
graduates had done.
That's not how I read that, so I'll send that data, because it's a lot higher for TSI.
Yes, because, even though, those kids have for the outcome bonus, that's great, but I think I'm concerned about the kids that are gonna go to college in August and have not passed the TSI.
Right.
I was really happy that you had that 2-week, tutorial, that was really a good, we did our part, like I was telling my mother, we did our part. I mean, if you don't send your child, I mean, that's on them. But I wanted to know how many of our kids that are gonna be going to college have not passed their TSI. That means they're gonna go, the parents are gonna go and pay for them to take a class in college.
It's a little bit more complicated. If they took the college prep class and go to UTRGV, they don't have to. That's considered mastering that. So they can either pass TSI or they can take the college prep.
Oh, well then, okay, maybe.
So it's both of those.
Out of how many graduates did we have? 100 and?
We had 221. I could get you both of that. We have that data, how many took the class and how many passed
Okay,
TSI.
I guess what I'm interested in is how many kids are gonna go to college on the first day, in the class they're gonna take, they're gonna get credit for that class.
And then there's even another layer to it, because when you go to Texas State, I don't know about UTRGV, but you go to UT, you go to A&M, if you pass the TSI, then you still have to take another class, another test, and if you don't pass that, then you still have to take remedial. So like my daughter went to Texas State, even though she passed TSI, if she didn't pass their math test, she was still gonna take remedial. So it's TSI, and then they had a chemistry one too. If she didn't pass the chemistry, they were gonna have to have a remedial chemistry. So it didn't matter about the TSI,
You still
That
have
was
to pay for another class.
if you don't pass their particular
That's
test.
what I'm saying, you as a parent had to
Yes.
pay
Yes,
for another class.
if they didn't do that.
Is it SAT and ACT are now
It's-
required, or?
It's still
Any
not
college
required, it's still not required, but besides TSI, that's another area that if you make a certain score, it doesn't matter what you get on TSI, that gets you into not having to take remedial, the ACT, SAT. So there's different factors of the remedial.
And that's what I would like to know. I don't think I want parents paying for a class of something they could have, and that's what that conversation that mother and I had. I said, you're gonna pay, for your child, because you didn't send them those 2 weeks, so that they could have taken the test and perhaps not patients. Well, I didn't know that. I said, well, I mean, it was there. And you send invitations out.
100 invitations, Dr. Leal.
Yeah, so again, so on these, the ones that I mentioned, pages 23 to 25, this is all data, and the purpose that I wanted to show it was, a lot of this data, it's rollover data, right? Data that, like for example, PIMS, this is data, if it's student data, it's data that we just got. We don't know what the future data looks like, so we try to be conservative in some areas. Just like in there, it has all the T values when it talks about property values. As I mentioned earlier, our property values don't get certified till July and so forth. And the reason I said that, because then if you go to page 26 and 27, that's the summary of finance. And I'm sure y'all, we've talked about the summary of finance report before. And the reason I wanted to talk about the summary of finance report is because TA has a summary of finance report, right? And they update theirs periodically as they get real data, because what they just roll it over. And so for somebody out there that might say, hey, you're supposed to be getting this much in CCMR, you're supposed to be getting this much in CTE. Well, they're basing it off what TA says, but that's rollover data. We have to wait till we do our PM snapshot, our fall submission, and then of course our summer submission to give them actual numbers. And so that's why some of that data, I always tell them, just be careful. That's why TA does 2 to 3 updates every month. And they have a run ID, and that run ID tells you, okay, what did they actually go in there and update? Because as you can see, right, it's a lot of different data. But this data is what we use then to compare what we just presented right now. So if we go to page 28, just give you all the rundown. Also, we did talk about this one as well in the budget workshop with all our state and our federal grants that we have. And so some of them may have an asterisk because, for example, all of our ESSA and our IDLB and Perkins, those are all just planning amounts. They just opened up the grant applications on those, usually around January, February. If there's any reallocations, like any leftover funds, they might give us a little bit of that. So these are just planning amounts that we have for those. Of course, there you'll see Gear Up, you'll see, and 21st Century. I think those are our 2 biggest grants that we have, besides the ones that we get every year. However, when I mentioned the budget workshop, our title, all of ours have been going down slightly every year. And it's a combination of student enrollment decline, but our EcoDisc population also going down along. And then the last page, just our long-term obligations. And again, when we presented it last year, we did not have, I think we did have the 2025 bonds, but we didn't have the 2026. We actually had 2014A, 2014B, 2015, and 2016. And if y'all recall, I think it was in October, November, we brought those to refund them, which is just to consolidate it. So now we have those 3. And then of course we have one that we paid through general fund, the limited tax note refunding series. And so that's the upcoming payments that we have. Those payments have already been incorporated into the budget that we just talked about. Is there any questions? Yes,
I have a couple of questions.
yes, ma'am.
The first one, the nurse position, how many nurses do we have?
So that was the same situation as a counselor. It was an excess position that we had. So every campus had a nurse, except I believe it was Green, they had 2 nurses. And then we had a nurse that decided to resign, and so then we had one that we were able to move, so we didn't fill that one that resigned.
From when we
Okay.
closed the campus.
And it was as a result of when we closed that.
Okay. My next question is on the salary increases.
Yes, ma'am?
Our maintenance, is that auxiliary?
Yes, ma'am.
For example, like Is that a good raise for them, or 2%?
Well, it depends, right, because then they're all in different pay grids, so it does vary by whether, you know, if your custodians are in pay grid 1, and then you have your general maintenance workers that are in pay grid 4 or 5, and then of course your bus drivers are in pay grid 8. So-
I can tell you, last year they got 4%, this year it's 2% because we don't have any new funds from the state. So that's why, last year was 4, which was much better, and this year it's at 2% because it's just from whatever we can absorb. So
Okay.
it could, yeah, it,
But it is a nice increase.
Yeah. I think it is, right, I think when you compare it to others out there that, you know,
Okay.
like, it's definitely good, it's been consistent, I think the board has done a good job of giving a raise every year, so if you look back just 3 or 4 years, it's definitely increased.
and I think you have to look at, we have to recommend as administration, and you do whatever, but we have to recommend what we can afford.
Right.
And, yeah.
And
See, that's the
yeah.
thing.
would we absolutely like to give exactly what we gave last year at 4%? Absolutely. But when you look at the funding and how much money you have, you can say, I know Alex shared with me, they did a survey across the valley, who's giving raises and who's not. And some districts unfortunately are not able to do that, and some are. And so, one of the things that you all asked us as board members to see what we could do to make sure that we gave something to our staff, even though it's not there's no extra funding. And so Alex looked at the numbers, and based upon where we are with funding and the increases and everything else, giving something as y'all requested, but being able to afford to do it. And so when you say, is it nice, I guarantee you they're gonna say it's not a whole lot, you know, and,
Well, it's based on their pay rate.
Right.
2%,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
That's what they earn.
right.
No, well, thank you, I just was curious, so, thank you.
Any other questions, you all or the audience?
You know, when I was concerned because our enrollment had, you know, we never were able to raise it to whatever it was before, even with the five new subdivisions we have here in La Feria. And then, you know, all by myself, I kind of said, well, at least we're getting the tax, you know, property tax for all those subdivisions. We might not be getting more kids, but at least our tax money, our property tax has increased. Has it increased because of those 5 subdivisions?
It's hard to tell, cause, last year it did, cause if you go under new construction, last year, it was like about, $80-90 million of new construction. This year, in the preliminary tax roll, it was about 24 million, so that tells me that a lot of those houses have already been completed, now have they been sold, I mean, that's different, right?
Oh, I see.
But, like, if you compare last year's tax roll, yeah.
They still have to pay tax.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And depending on their area, if they do qualify for the homestead exemption, then they are automatically getting that 140,000 deducted from their taxable value. So, and that only applies to school districts, so it's a yes or no question, but, yeah, I mean, we will only be able to tell once we start, you know, getting actual property tax collections.
Yeah, and the discouraging thing that I see, 'cause I sometimes I'm out there at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and to see the, and I know I've mentioned this to the service before, I mean, those buses, they have nobody. One child gets picked up from the neighborhood across my house, and the whole big bus goes for that one child. And I know that you gave me numbers, and I know that those numbers mean that they're eligible to run, or
No,
they
those-
signed up?
Those are our riders each day, but in your subdivision, there might be only a couple across the street, but then they go to other places, because the numbers that I gave you are how many ride the bus.
Days. Ah, okay.
Per bus, yes. So this one might have 54, this one might have, you know, 30.
Because that bus that I followed the other day, picked up one child across the street, went all around, and picked up another child on the next street from Mr. Oel's, picked up, so they picked up 2 kids from those 2,
areas.
yeah.
And I, you know, when we go out to Teocano and north, you know, there's some, we drive a distance just to pick up 1 or 2 there. And so sometimes certain areas don't have as many.
And did you see a whole bunch of cars after school waiting to pick up their kids, different times?
Any other questions on Mr. Cespedes?
No,
I have
thank
read
you.
those.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. It is now 6:55 PM, and we will close the open public meeting, and we come into the regular scheduled board meeting. The first item to consider and possible action is discussion and consideration, possible action to approve budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 25-26.
And
And administration is recommending to take no action on this item. Next item, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the 26-27 teacher salary schedule and compensation plan.
So I'll go over it briefly. A lot of those we already talked about, but we did have some changes again. The reason I put the draft watermark is I know that, when we had the budget workshop, I think the board requested that we show you, you go to page 3, to show you the increase from the prior step. So that way, if a teacher last year was on, for example, and the ones that might have questions, for example, like if a teacher was on step 2 last year, and now they're on step 3, they're the ones that would get that 1,900 increase. Again, that's state mandated. That's not because the district wants to give them more than the other ones. And the same thing with the teachers that were on step 4 last year, and now they're on step 5, they will get a 4,000.
And the state does send us those funds.
Yes.
And so, something I want to remind everyone, and that Mr. Cespedes reminds me, that was a raise for 2 years. So if the legislators don't,
Yeah, they would have to reapprove it, because remember we're talking about tier 1 and tier 2, there's a tier 2 thing, so it's under the tier 2, so that means that they would have to vote again, legislation would have to vote for it again. Or what they can do, and incorporate it into tier 1, and then they make it part of your basic allotment.
but if no action is taken, then we will not have those funds.
Is this more like for a teacher retention, kind of? Because
Yeah.
it's, 3 and 5, it's kind of, early in the.
But everybody got a 5+.
Right,
Mhm.
but it's like, those are the numbers
Yeah, it
that
sounds like
really.
they were targeting those, because
Yes.
For
you have a
teacher
combination,
retention.
you have like little groups, yeah.
Yes.
The 3 and 5s, I guess, were the hardest ones to retain.
Yeah,
And then with all the
Maybe they
recent
start to
increases and with
Mhm.
TIA, now you have teachers that are 20+ years, that,
Mhm.
you have, those are your 2 biggest groups now.
yeah. So if we don't have, a need, or not a need, but a surplus of teachers, where we had a shortage
Yes.
before, how after COVID, everyone started leaving the
And after
field.
this raise last year, I can tell you, we had 1 administrator and 1 teacher retire, and that is a little smaller in number than what we've had in the past, and I think a lot had to do with the fact that they did get a significant raise, and so that helps with their teacher retirement. Something else we wanted to do with the teacher pay raise is not just have a stipend, but to have a pay raise, so that if you see the steps, one thing that we continue to try to do is close that gap with neighboring districts that are larger. And this would add that additional, last year we were at 52.5 or 52.4.
For which one?
What was our beginning, year 1 was 52.5, and
Yeah,
this year?
so last year it was $900 less, so it was 52,500, and now it'll be 53,400. That's why I put an increase of 900 there. We couldn't do the 4,000, otherwise 0 and step 1 would be the same. So it's just to keep that difference, but yeah, the House Bill 2 really helped us be a little bit more competitive with our bigger neighboring districts. Yeah. So we go on to page 4, again, those are some of the other or extra duty pays that we offer. One of the ones that we did add there was part-time bus drivers. As you all know, with the realignment of the district, we do have a lot of long trips. And for, DOT regulations, some of our bus drivers, obviously they have to have a certain amount of rest before they can drive again the next day. We don't know what the outlook will be like in terms of how many of them we'll get, but we wanted to, talking to Mr. Marin, possibility of some of these part-time drivers doing those long routes, and not all of them, because I don't think we'll get enough of them, so that our bus drivers that do the morning routes would be able to do them. And so again, we don't know how that's gonna look, but we wanted to make sure that we at least have that position in there in case we start hiring some part-time bus drivers. And then the bottom, under tutoring for hourly rate, we always only had the one that was $35, but we've always paid them based on their certification. So we just wanted to, it resembles the way we pay substitutes. For example, ACE uses a lot of college students for tutoring, They get paid $15 an hour, same as like our substitutes that are non-degreed. And then you have degreed tutors that sometimes come and help out, whether it's with TSI or other subjects. They would get $25. And then, of course, we do have some retired teachers that are certified, and those are the ones that get $35 an hour. The next one is just the years of service. The board has always done this one. We just wanted to just formally put it on the compensation plan, the one that you all give out in November or December for the years of service with the district. And then the summer pay for teachers. I think that one, we would always base it off the funding, but just to be more consistent and standard, to make it fair to teachers, if a teacher comes and works and it's less than 4 hours, then we'll pay them an hourly rate. But if it's more than 4 hours, we'll pay them a daily rate, whether it's 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, they'll get that daily rate. And so those are some of the things that we wanted to incorporate. If we go on to page 5 and 6, those are the ones for the admin professional. On the athletic trainers, we just changed the number of days that they work. They already work those days, we just wanted to update it so that it correctly reflects the days that they work. And then under the bottom, step 4, school psychologists, it was just a change name. They're no longer considered or called LSSP, it's just school psychologists. Nothing changed, their day didn't change or their pay didn't change. And then on page 6, at the high school, we did make some changes in terms of the number of days. Just realigned the way we aligned the elementary and the middle school, the assistant principals and the principals to be 221 days on those. Again, nothing changes, their pay doesn't change, it's just changing the days.
And we did that last year for all of the other admin.
And then on page 7, similar again, we adjusted some of the days. Again, the PIMs at the high school. Again, they're pairs, so if the principal is gonna work 221, they also have to align them. Again, doesn't affect their pay, just the days. On the special ed, if you see on steps 3 and 4, we closed out those positions and they do the same duties already, and so we put them in pay grade 5, so that they could, it's 2 of the same. And then in pay grade 6, again, the secretary at the high school, just to align it with the principal and the assistant principal. Again, there was no adjustment of pay or any change. In page 9, we did add 1 position, and that is for the police officers. We added a captain position. At this point, it's not a higher grade, it's just so that in case chief names one of them captain, we do have a formal position on our compensation plan.
What's the difference between captain and chief? Isn't that the same person?
I don't do law enforcement now, so to me,
Chief Romero just asked if he is out to have somebody, and he would name Officer Banda. Is that just somebody that would be in charge, is still making the same pay as everybody else? But that is something that he recommended that he didn't ask. So it's the same thing as the police officer, it's not a chief, it's a captain. It's below that, according to him.
and then we go on to page 10 on the special ed stipend. Again, once we got a survey from Region 1, we did increase the special ed self-contained stipend. We increased it by $500 to $3,500. Page 11, that's the one that we have a little bit more changes. We did adjust the stipends for choir. We added the spelling bee because our elementaries always have a spelling bee, and there's always a sponsor that does it. And they were doing it on a volunteer basis, so it's adding the $250 one. We no longer have the Lions Roar, so we don't have that stipend anymore. And then at the bottom, we just kind of clarified the way we use the operators for the scoreboard at the stadium. Again, the majority of it is used when we have the football games, so we just wanted to make sure we clarified, what they would be eligible for, and of course, they have to get approval for that. The next one is page 13. And this one, we just added back the music and choir department stipends. They had been omitted last year, and those were the only ones that had been omitted, so we wanted to make sure we added those back. And then page 14, there was some, we talked to the high school, there was some of these sponsors that, these clubs have not been in place for a while, so we wanted to make sure that we remove them. And then in page 16 is just changing the UIO coordinator just to say middle school, because they used to do middle school and elementary, but we no longer do a UIO at the elementary level. And then in athletics, it was just changing names, but in terms of funding, nothing went up or nothing went down. They still have the same total budget. But they just adjusted the way some of the way the stipends are called. And that's on page 18 at the bottom, some of the other stipends. As well as in page 19 for Green Middle School. They adjusted the way they have their head football and assistant football coaches. But again, in terms of funding, everything's the same. Are there any questions on it? Or?
So the CTE instructors, is that the only job we have? Or do we have CTE instructors that do,
Coaching, we have some that coach.
and there's CTE instructors?
Yes.
Coaches.
Yes.
Any other questions of Mr. Cisco? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the 2026-2027 teacher salary schedule and compensation plan.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Secretary, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 26-27 teacher salary schedule and compensation plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt the budget for fiscal year 26-27.
Thank you, Board President Castillo. So again, this one, if y'all want, I can go back to the one that we presented, but it was, what we presented is just to take a formal action on it, but it's essentially approving what we presented during the public hearing. I don't know if there's any additional questions on that. I
Any
can go over it again.
questions of Mr. Suspectus? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve to adopt the budget for the fiscal year 2026-2027.
And do I have a second? A second by Mrs. Martinez. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the budget for the fiscal year 26-27. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to authorize the superintendent as trustees of the South Texas Health Cooperative to execute the necessary steps to withdraw from the current employee health insurance consulting agreement and to enter into a contract approved by legal counsel for the South Texas Health Cooperative for consulting services with Valley Risk Consulting Incorporated.
Thank you, Board President. Again, this is something that we have brought to the board. I believe we brought it back in April to allow the superintendents, as you all know, our insurance is through the South Texas Health Co-op, so it's our district and as well as Rio Hondo. So the two board members, the two superintendents for each district, they act as the trustees for the co-op, but before they can take any formal action, they still need to get, authority from their respective boards. And so, when we brought it back in April, it was to allow the superintendent and the co-op to go out for an RFQ to look for a new consultant to help us with our health insurance. So I just want to clarify, I know we brought one back last summer, that was for our employee paid benefits. Those are what you call the cafeteria plans, like your dental, your vision. So this is for the employee health insurance that the district provides to employees. And then some employees do contribute to it if they either have a buy-up or they have their children or their spouse. They do pay a contribution to it. So this one, we did go out for an RFQ. We had a total of 4 different companies submit a bid. And then we both superintendents did an evaluation on them, and then they did have an interview with the top 2, and then they did make a choice of Valley Risk Consulting. But before they hold a meeting, before the South Texas Health Co-op holds a meeting to take a formal action, the board has to give the authority to the superintendent. I don't know if there's any questions. We did provide backup on the action sheet, and it showed the summary of Valley Risk Consulting. They do a lot of consulting services for the majority of our school districts in the valley.
Questions of Mr. Cisneros? And do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the superintendent as trustee of the South Texas Health Cooperative to execute the necessary steps to withdraw from the current employee health insurance consulting agreement and to enter into a contract approved by legal counsel for the South Texas Health Cooperative for consulting services with Valley Risk Consulting, Inc.
And do I have a second? I have a second by Mrs. Martinez, excuse me. It's been moved and seconded to approve, to authorize the superintendent's trustees of the South Texas Health Cooperative to execute the necessary steps to withdraw from the current employee health insurance consultant agreement and to enter into a contract approved by legal counsel for the South Texas Health Cooperative for consulting services with Valley Risk Consulting Incorporated. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 7-0. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the renovation of staff restrooms at WD Green Middle School.
Thank you, Board President. So this one, we did not attach any backup to it. This one, we did do a walkthrough with different vendors. We went with Centerstone, we talked to Argio and Scoggins, and another vendor, another contractor. This is to add additional restrooms there at Green, at the far end wing. The reason for that is now that they've incorporated sixth grade, that restroom right now, I think it's only I don't know if it's a sped restroom or it's just for one person. So we wanted to make sure that we can have additional restroom for males and females. And so this one, we did budget it, in the budget that you all just approved, we did budget for these upgrades. But we have to bring it since it is over $50,000 for the board. And it is gonna be, it says less than 100,000. The bid that they submitted was for $95,000.
And we do pulse surveys throughout the year, and in the middle of the year, that's one of the things that the staff asked for at Green is more additional restrooms.
Right, that's how it all got started, after the first, because I believe we do the surveys 3 times throughout the year. After the first one, that was one of the things that they brought up.
Any questions of Mr. Cespedes?
I move that we approve the renovation of staff restrooms at William B. Green Middle School.
A second?
The second by Mrs. Johnson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 7-0. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a partnership agreement and memorandum of understanding between the Lafayette Independent School District and Region 1 Education Service Center Early Childhood Intervention Program, ECI.
So, Board President Castillo and board members, Region 1 contacted me because they are, instead of Easter Seals, they are now the early childhood contact for Cameron and Willacy County. And so they contacted us to see if we would provide office space for them to use as they serve. And in trade for that, for them coming, most of the time, I think it's about 20 of them that come, but most of the time they're out at campuses. They just need a place to be. They will provide us free professional development and behavior interventions and things like that. They will assist us in meeting the needs of our families and presenting there. So I think it's a great thing. There's nothing that we have to do for them. Until we make the move to Bell, they have one room and they're good with that. And then once we move to Bell, we'll be able to give them a couple of rooms. So I think it's a great partnership with Region 1 for them to be in our area and provide us those services. So Ms. Garza has been meeting with them, and I know that Ms. Bento also works with them sometimes with the Child Find. And so it's an administrative recommendation to approve this MOU.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve a partnership agreement and memorandum of understanding between Lafayette Independent School District and Region 1 Education Service Center Early Childhood Intervention Program.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Montalvo. It's been moved and seconded to approve our partnership agreement and memorandum of understanding between the Lafayette Independent School District and Region 1 Education Service Center Early Childhood Intervention Program, ECI. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 7-0. It is now 7:14 p.m. and we're moving to closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Thank you, Sarah. It is now 7:31 p.m. and we are now reconvening to open session. Let the record show that the superintendent approved the resignation as presented by administration in closed session. Ida L. Martinez, Jeannie Ray Bazan, Jesse Rodriguez. And according to board policy DC local, the superintendent approved the following: Ryan Espinosa, a 1-year dual assignment probationary contract for the 26-27 school year. Are there any motions?
Madam President, I move to approve a 1-year probationary contract for the 2027 school year to Leonorlinda A. Munoz, Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, 1-year probationary contract, and Jennifer Vela, 1-year probationary contract, pending completion of required documentation.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mrs. Johnson. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. If there is no other business, I have a motion to adjourn. A motion by Mr. Zambrano. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Martinez. I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. It is now 7:32 PM, and this meeting is adjourned.